Hare Krishna, dear devotees, welcome back to the daily readings of Srila Prabhupada's books. You know, Krishna, he's so kind. He's everybody's friend, Suridam, Sarvabhutanam. He's everybody's father, Bijamam, Sarvabhutanam. And therefore, he set up the Vedic literatures in such a way that wherever a person is in terms of spiritual attainment or lack of thereof, or social conditions and culture, there's something in the Vedas for everyone. And therefore, people who are not familiar with Krishna, who do not know that he's the Supreme Absolute Truth, the goal of the Vedas, he constructed the Vedas in such a way that there's something for everyone. So therefore it seems like there may be contradictory things, but there's actually no contradictory things. It's like a staircase or escalator that's going from one place to another, from down to up. So we're reading Krishna's instructions in which he explains all these things from the viewpoint of the absolute authority. So before we read today, and I want to explain that because my voice and my body is not so strong still, although I'm getting much better, I'm going to limit my reading tonight to 45 minutes, including my little introduction. So I'll be stopping at 7:45. It is now 7:05. So please don't mind this. And in some ways, maybe the shorter readings may be even easier to get your minds around and remember, and it'll be perhaps more concentrated. Okay. Srila Sanatana Goswami, the disciple of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, has written Srimad Bhagavata Mahima Stotram, Srimad Bhagavata Mahima Stotram, in order to explain to us, and for his own personal worship of the Srimad Bhagavatam, the glories of the Bhagavatam, and to help us understand more deeply what we're reading and why it's so important. It goes like this. Sarva Shastrabdi Piyusha Sarva Vedaika Satpala Sarva Siddhanta Ratnadya Sarva Lokaika Drikprida. O nectar from the ocean of all scriptures, singular fruit of all the Vedas, rich mine of the precious gems of all conclusive truths, you are the only giver of sight to all the worlds. Sarva Bhagavata Prana Srimad Bhagavata Prabho Kalidwan Doditaditya Sri Krishna Parivartita. O life air of all the Lord's devotees, O Master Srimad Bhagavatam, you are the sun risen in the darkness of Kali. You are the exact image of Sri Krishna. Paramananda Pataya Prema Varshak Shadayate Sarvada Sarvasevyaya Sri Krishnaya Namostume. I bow down to you, who are supremely blissful to read. Your every syllable pours down a flood of prema. You can always be served by everyone. You are Sri Krishna himself. Madekavando Matsangin Madguro Mad Mahadana Mad Nistadaka Mad Bhagya Mad Ananda Namostute. My only friend, my constant companion, my spiritual master, my great wealth, my savior, my good fortune, my source of ecstasy, I bow down to you. Asadu sadutadayin atini chochatakara hanamunchagadachin mam premna rit kantayospura. O bestower of saintliness to the unsaintly, O exalter of the most fallen, please never leave me. Always appear in my heart and my voice with pure love. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So, as I was saying, Lord Krishna has given us the Vedic path, and here in this chapter we've reached the 21st chapter of the Srimad Bhagavatam, and here he's explaining to Uddhava the Vedic path, right from the mouth of the supreme authority. O saintly Uddhava, in order to restrict materialistic activities, I have established that which is proper and improper among all material things, including time, space, and all physical objects. Purport. The word niyamartam, in order to restrict, is significant in this verse. A conditioned soul falsely identifies with his material senses and thus considers anything giving immediate satisfaction to the body to be good, and anything inconvenient or disturbing to be bad. By higher intelligence, however, one recognizes long-term self-interest and danger. For example, medicine may be immediately bitter, but by calculating one's long-term interest, one accepts the bitter medicine to cure a disease that is not immediately troublesome, but ultimately fatal. Similarly, Vedic literature restricts the sinful propensities of human beings by establishing what is proper and what is improper among all the objects and activities of the material world. Because everyone must eat the foods in the mode of goodness, and not those which are sinful, such as meat, fish, and eggs. Similarly, one is advised to live in a peaceful and pious community, and not in association with sinful persons, nor in an unclean or turbulent environment. By designating and restricting the exploitation of the material world, Vedic knowledge gradually brings the conditioned soul to the platform of material goodness. At that stage, one becomes eligible to serve the Supreme Personality of Godhead and enter the transcendental stage of life. It should be remembered that such mere eligibility does not constitute actual qualification. I'll repeat that. It should be remembered that such mere eligibility does not constitute actual qualification. Without Krishna consciousness, mere mundane piety can never qualify a conditioned soul to go back home, back to Godhead. Within this world, we are all infected by false pride, which must be diminished through submission to the Vedic injunctions. One who is completely engaged in the loving service of the Lord need not adopt these preliminary methods, for he directly contracts the personality of Godhead through the spontaneous process of surrender. In the previous verse, the Lord explained why Vedic literatures assign different values to the bodies of different living entities. And here, the Lord explains the Vedic value system in regard to the material objects that interact with these bodies. Text 8. Among places, those bereft of the spotted antelope, those devoid of devotion to the Brahmanas, those possessing spotted antelopes but bereft of respectable men, provinces like Kikata, and places where cleanliness and purificatory rites are neglected, where meat-eaters are prominent, or where the earth is barren, are all considered to be contaminated lands. Purport. The word Krishnasara refers to the spotted antelope, whose hide is used by brahmacharis while residing in the ashram of the spiritual master. Brahmacharis never hunt in the forest, but rather accept skins from those animals already deceased. The skin of the black or spotted antelope is also used as a garment by those receiving instruction in the execution of Vedic scripture or sacrifice. Therefore, since sacrifice cannot be properly performed in areas bereft of such creatures, these places are impure. Furthermore, although the inhabitants of a particular place may be expert in performing fruitive activities and ritualistic sacrifices, if they are inimical to the devotional service of the Lord, such a place is also polluted. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur explains that previously the provinces of Bihar and Bengal were bereft of devotional service to the Lord and were considered impure. Then great Vaishnavas, such as Jayadev, appeared in these territories, converting them into holy places. The word Asauvira indicates those places without suviras, respectable saintly persons. Ordinarily, a person who obeys the state laws is considered a respectable citizen. In the same way, one who strictly obeys the law of God is considered to be a cultured or decent man, suvira. The place where such intelligent persons reside is called Sauviram. Kikata refers to the modern state of Bihar, which traditionally has been known as a territory of uncivilized men. Even in such provinces, however, any place where saintly persons gather is considered to be holy. On the other hand, a province of generally respectable persons is immediately polluted by the presence of sinful men. Asangskrita indicates lack of external cleanliness, as well as the absence of purificatory ceremonies for internal cleanliness. Srila Madhvacharya quotes from the Skanda Purana as follows: religious persons should reside within an 8-mile radius of rivers, oceans, mountains, hermitages, forests, spiritual cities, or places where the Shalagram Shila is found. We can see just out the window the English Channel, so we're less than 8 miles from the sea. Plus I'm surrounded by saintly persons. Correct. All other places should be considered kikata, or contaminated. But even if in such contaminated places black and spotted antelopes are found, one may reside there as long as sinful persons are not also present. Even if sinful persons are present, if the civil power rests with respectable authorities, one may remain. Similarly, one may dwell wherever the deity of Vishnu is duly installed and worshipped. The Lord here elaborates upon the theme of piety and sin, which are based on purity and impurity. Thus, pure and contaminated places of residence are described here. Text 9. A specific time is considered pure when it is appropriate, either by its own nature or through achievement of suitable paraphernalia for the performance of one's prescribed duty. That time which impedes the performance of one's duty is considered impure. Purport. Having discussed pure and impure places, the Lord now discusses different qualities of time. Certain times, such as the Brahma Muhurta, the last few hours before sunrise, are always auspicious for spiritual advancement. Other times, not auspicious in themselves, become so by achievement of material prosperity that facilitates one's mission in life. Political, social, or economic disturbances that obstruct the execution of one's religious duties are considered inauspicious times. Similarly, a woman is considered contaminated just after childbirth or during her menstrual period. She cannot perform ordinary religious activities at such times, which are therefore inauspicious and impure. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati explains that the most auspicious of all times is the moment one achieves the mercy of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So can I repeat that? Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur explains that the most auspicious of all times is the moment one achieves the mercy of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. If one neglects the loving service of the Lord, being carried away by sense gratification, he is certainly living in most inauspicious times. Therefore, that moment in which one achieves the association of the Supreme Lord or the Lord's pure devotee is the most auspicious time, whereas the moment of losing such association is most inauspicious. In other words, the perfection of life is simply Krishna consciousness, by which one transcends the dualities of time and space caused by the three modes of material nature. Text 10. An object's purity or impurity is established by application of another object, by words, by rituals, by the effects of time, or according to relative magnitude. Purport. Cloth is purified by application of clean water and contaminated by application of urine. The words of a saintly Brahmin are pure, but the sound vibration of a materialistic person is contaminated by lust and envy. A saintly devotee explains actual purity to others, whereas a non-devotee makes false propaganda that leads innocent people to commit polluted, sinful activities. Pure rituals are those meant for the satisfaction of the Supreme Lord, while materialistic ceremonies are those that lead their followers into materialistic and demoniac activities. The word sangskarena also indicates that the purity or impurity of a particular object is ascertained according to the regulations of ritualistic performances. For example, a flower to be offered to the deity must be purified with water. Flowers or food cannot be offered to the deity, however, if they have been contaminated by being smelled or tasted before the offering. The word kalena indicates that certain substances are purified by time and others contaminated by time. Rainwater, for example, is considered pure after 10 days' time, and after 3 days in cases of emergency. On the other hand, certain foods decay in time and thus become impure. Mahatma indicates that great bodies of water do not become contaminated. And alpataya means that a small amount of water can easily become polluted or stagnant. In the same way, a great soul is not polluted by occasional contact with materialistic persons, whereas one whose devotion to God is very small is easily carried away and put into doubt by bad association. In terms of combination with other substances, and in terms of speech, ritual, time, and magnitude, the purity and impurity of all objects can be ascertained. Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur remarks that impure or decayed food is certainly forbidden for normal persons, but is permissible for those who have no other means of subsistence. Text 11. Impure things may or may not impose sinful reactions upon a person, depending on that person's strength or weakness, intelligence, wealth, location, and physical condition. I'll read that again. It's very important. Impure things may or may not impose sinful reactions upon a person, depending on that person's strength or weakness, intelligence, wealth, location, and physical condition. Purport. The Lord has described the purity and impurity of different places, times, and material objects. According to the laws of nature, that which is impure contaminates a particular person in accordance with that person's situation as described here. For example, on certain occasions, such as a solar eclipse or just after childbirth, one must restrict the intake of food according to ritualistic injunctions. One who is physically weak, however, may eat without being considered impious. Ordinary persons consider the 10 days following childbirth to be most auspicious, whereas one who is learned knows that this period is actually impure. Ignorance of the law does not save one from being punished, but one who consciously commits sinful activities is considered most fallen. Concerning opulence, samriddhi, worn out, dirty clothing, or a messy residence are considered impure for a rich man, but acceptable for one who is poor. The word desha indicates that in a safe and peaceful place, one is obligated to strictly perform religious rituals, whereas in a dangerous or chaotic situation, one may be excused for occasional negligence of secondary principles. You see, this pandemic, even the standard of the deities in ISKCON are being regulated or adjusted according to the chaotic situation. It's all so logical and all so true. One who is physically healthy must offer obeisances to the deities, attend religious functions, and execute his prescribed duties. But a young child or sickly person may be excused from such activities, as indicated by the word avastha. Ultimately, as Srila Rupa Goswami states, Anyabhilashita shunyam jnana karmadya navritam anukulyena krishnanu shilanam bhaktir uttama. One should render transcendental loving service to the Supreme Lord Krishna favorably and without desire for material profit or gain through furtive activities or philosophical speculation. That is called pure devotional service. Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu 1.1.11. One should accept everything which is favorable for the devotional service of Lord Krishna and reject whatever is unfavorable. One must learn the process of serving God from the bona fide spiritual master and thus always maintain one's existence pure and free from anxiety. In general, however, when considering the relative purity and impurity of material things, all of the above-mentioned factors must be calculated. So if one follows these rules and regulations, simply because they're there, without consciously going forward, or desiring to go forward at least, to pure Krishna consciousness, then it's a cause of fall down. Or if one neglects them, it's a cause of fall down. So it's a great science. And it's not so rigid as sometimes we hear from materialistic devotees. You know, there's different times in which different degrees of purity are allowed. Just said, a rich person's house is expected to be spotlessly clean and organized. Poor person's house isn't expected to be like that. So, if a rich person is messy, then he'll get more reaction than a poor person who is messy. Like that, there's all kinds of rules and regulations. It's a science. Living in this material world according to the laws of nature is a science. And if we accept the science and take up pure devotional service, then all these other rituals, rules, they're not as important as our consciousness and in our pure devotional service. Text 12. Various objects, such as grains, wooden utensils, things made of bone, thread, liquids, objects derived from fire, skins, and earthy objects, are all purified by time, by the wind, by fire, by earth, and by water, either separately or in combination. Purport. The word kala, or time, is mentioned here, since all purificatory processes take place within time. 13. A particular purifying agent is considered appropriate when its application removes the bad odor or dirty covering of some contaminated object and makes it resume its original nature. Purport. Furniture, kitchen utensils, clothing, and other objects are purified by application of abrasion, alkali, acid, water, and so on. One thereby removes the bad fragrance or impure coating of such objects, restoring them to their original clean appearance. 14. The self can be cleansed by bathing, charity, austerity, age, personal strength, purificatory rituals, prescribed duties, and above all, by remembrance of me. The Brahmana and other twice-born men should be duly purified before performing their specific activities. Purport. The word avastha indicates that when boys and girls are young, they are kept pure by youthful innocence, and that as they grow up, they are kept pure through proper education and engagement. By one's individual potency, one should avoid sinful activities and the association of those inclined towards sense gratification. The word karma here refers to prescribed duties, such as worshipping the spiritual master and the deity, chanting the Gayatri mantra 3 times daily, and accepting spiritual initiation. The prescribed duties of the varnashram system automatically purify one from the covering of false ego by dovetailing one's bodily designation in appropriate religious activities. There are specific duties for Brahmanas, Kshatriyas, Vaishyas, Shudras, Brahmacharis, Grihastas, Vanaprasthas, and Sannyasis, as described previously in this canto by the Lord Himself. The most significant word here is mat smritya, by remembrance of me. Ultimately, one cannot avoid the infection of illusion through any process except Krishna consciousness. The three modes of nature perpetually interact, and one must sometimes fall into the mode of ignorance and sometimes rise to the mode of goodness, uselessly rotating within the kingdom of illusion. But by Krishna consciousness, remembrance of the personality of Godhead, one can actually uproot one's tendency to act against the will of the Supreme Truth. I'll read that again. But by Krishna consciousness, remembrance of the personality of Godhead, one can actually uproot one's tendency. Bhagavat, we're right in the middle of the reading.
I'm sorry.
That's quite all right. Now, are we still on?
Yeah,
We are.
we're still on.
Okay. Bhagavat, would you mind if we continue to read?
Yeah, that's what I'm here for. I'm
Okay.
sorry, I thought you...
Good. Okay. Very interesting. I'll go back up a few sentences to get the continuity and Bhagavats for Bhagavat Ashraya. We're on text 14, chapter 21, canto 11. The self can be cleansed by bathing, charity, austerity, age, personal strength, purificatory rituals, prescribed duties, and above all, by remembrance of me. The Brahmana and other twice-born men should be duly purified before performing their specific activities. Purport. The word avastha indicates that when boys and girls are young, they are kept pure by youthful innocence, and that as they grow up, they are kept pure through proper education and engagement. By one's individual potency, one should avoid sinful activities and the association of those inclined toward sense gratification. The word karma here refers to prescribed duties, such as worshipping the spiritual master and the deity, chanting the Gayatri mantra 3 times daily, and accepting spiritual initiation. The prescribed duties of the varnashram system automatically purify one from the covering of false ego by dovetailing one's bodily designation in appropriate religious activities. There are specific duties for Brahmanas, Kshatriyas, Vaishyas, Shudras, Brahmacharis, Grihastas, Vanaprasthas, and Sannyasis, as described previously in this canto by the Lord Himself. The most significant word here is mat smritya, by remembrance of me. Ultimately, one cannot avoid the infection of illusion through any process except Krishna consciousness. The 3 modes of material nature perpetually interact, and one must sometimes fall into the mode of ignorance and sometimes rise to the mode of goodness, uselessly rotating within the kingdom of illusion. But by Krishna consciousness, remembrance of the personality of Godhead, one can actually uproot one's tendency to act against the will of the Absolute Truth. Then one becomes freed from the clutches of Maya and goes back home, back to Godhead. As stated in the Garuda Purana, apavitra pavitro va sarva vastam gato piva yak smaret Pundarikaksham Sabhaya Bhyantare Shuchi. Garuda Purana 2:1:47-52. Whether one is pure or contaminated, and regardless of one's external situation, simply by remembering the lotus-eyed personality of Godhead, one can internally and externally cleanse one's existence. Lord Chaitanya recommended that we constantly remember the Supreme Lord by chanting His holy names. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. This sublime process is essential for every human actually desirous of purifying his existence. And with that, I'm going to stop tonight's reading. And I got a high five from Radharaman, who's our timekeeper today. So I have exactly 5 minutes before I turn into a pumpkin. So pumpkins don't speak very much. So we've got 5 minutes for reflections. Forgive me for my lack of time, but it is what it is. Hare Krishna. Cheers. Anything from the cyberspace?
Question from Yuvati Manjari.
Rati Manjari, you're like Old Faithful. Well, I don't want to call you old, young Faithful. She's always got some comment, something.
It's Yuvati Manjari.
Oh, this is Yadutama, my disciple who lives in Russia. Let me read it.
Yeah,
Let me read it.
You read it 'cause I can't.
Okay. Okay, Yadutama. Hare Krishna Gurudev, my obeisances, and all glories to Prabhupada. Thank you for helping us understand the subtleties of keeping the highest standard for properly executing devotional service. Well, these things are not actually the highest standard for prosecuting Krishna consciousness, but they help. These things can be accepted in order to help us come to a proper state. But, as we've heard again and again, even we may be in a perfect state materially, in the modes of nature, but if we're not Krishna conscious, or if the placing ourselves in the proper kind of purification or situation in terms of time and place and circumstances and personalities, then those so-called pure and impure things, they will have not much effect. And Krishna consciousness, if it's pure Krishna consciousness, no matter what condition you're in, it transcends everything. So that doesn't mean that we shouldn't try to live in goodness. It doesn't mean that we shouldn't try to live in a pure place, etc., etc. That we should not try to offer the purest things to the deities, purest things, offer the food to the deities, the bhoga rather. And but still, the main thing, to keep the main thing, is to keep ourselves remembering Krishna, and not just remembering Krishna, but remembering Krishna, what's the word? Favorably to Krishna. Kamsa was always remembering Krishna. He had the most opulence. He was following so many Vedic principles, as was Jarasandha and so many others. But because they were antagonistic, inimical to Krishna, all of those so-called purified objects and places, cleanliness and opulence and neatness and cultural niceties, they had no effect because they were inimical to Krishna. And on the other hand, if one becomes favorable to Krishna through pure devotional service, especially of hearing and chanting his glories in the holy name, then he will naturally become inclined to do these other things properly. This is why Srila Prabhupada would always say, and all the Vedas also say, that here in the material world, things are more complicated than in the spiritual world. Things are simple in the spiritual world simply because the only one thing that is on everyone's mind is how to please Krishna. And therefore automatically all the forms, all the ritual, everything is automatically put into the right place at the right time, in the right time of purity, in the right fragrance, in the right everything. And that's where we want to go. Okay. Hare Krishna, everyone. Thank you so much. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Samaveda Bhaktivinoda ki jai. Sri Krishna ki jai. Sri Uddhava ki jai. Gaur Premanandi. Hari Hari Bol. See you same time, same place. Right here in Hythe, Flat 8, the live studios, 126 State Street. I forget the postcode. But anyway, see you here tomorrow night at the same time, 7 o'clock UK time. And I will be here for sure. Hare Krishna. Thank you very much. Hari Bol.